It all started with a single YouTube video. That's it. One video that was enough to unleash a firestorm, trigger a multi-billion-dollar federal investigation, and plunge an entire state into chaos. We're going to unpack the Minnesota fraud tangle today, and believe me, it is a wild ride.
Listen to that last part again. This is just the first state. That's not just a statement. It's a threat. The head of the Small Business Administration is basically putting the entire country on notice. This isn't just about Minnesota. This is the opening shot in a nationwide war on pandemic fraud. So the big question is, how did we even get here, right? How does one state become ground zero for an investigation of this magnitude? Well, to figure that out, we have to rewind the clock a bit. You see, this whole thing didn't kick off in some quiet government building or a secret FBI meeting. Nope. It started where everything seems to start these days, online. It all blew up because of one video that caught fire and brought the full weight of the federal government crashing down. It's late 2025. A YouTuber, Nick Shirley, uploads a video. And the claim is absolutely explosive, that publicly funded daycare centers in Minnesota were basically ghost towns. They were getting taxpayer money, but there were no kids, no teachers, nothing. That video didn't just go viral. It went nuclear, all the way to the top in Washington, D.C. Well, as it turns out, that video was just the tip of a very, very big iceberg. Once federal investigators started pulling on that thread, the whole thing unraveled into this massive web of alleged fraud. So let's take a look at the numbers, because honestly, they're pretty staggering. $9 billion. Let me say that again. $9 billion with a B. That's the jaw-dropping number federal prosecutors are throwing around for the potential fraud in Minnesota's COVID programs. Now, state officials are definitely pushing back on that figure, but it gives you a sense of the insane scale we're dealing with here. And if we zoom in on just the pandemic relief loans, the PPP and EIDL programs that were supposed to help small businesses survive, the Small Business Administration is flagging $400 million in Minnesota alone as suspicious. $400 million. But this isn't just about big, abstract numbers. We're talking about 6,900 businesses and individuals in Minnesota who suddenly found themselves cut off. Imagine waking up one morning to find out you've been put on a federal blacklist, completely locked out from any kind of federal funding. That's the reality for thousands of people right now. And just look at the list of programs being investigated. It's not just one or two things. We're talking meal programs for kids, housing assistance, childcare funds, Medicaid, and of course those huge pandemic loan programs. This suggests to investigators that this wasn't just a few bad actors, but something potentially much more widespread. So when the U.S. government thinks there's fraud on this kind of epic scale, what do? They don't just send a strongly worded letter. They have a playbook, and they are running it step by step in Minnesota. Okay, get ready for some fun government jargon. One of their biggest weapons is something called a non-procurement suspension. Sounds complicated and boring, right? Wrong. Think of it as a financial kill switch. If an agency even suspects you of fraud, they can hit a button and instantly cut you off from all federal money. Not just from them, but from the entire government. And this whole process happens shockingly fast. You get a notice and bam, you're immediately cut off from federal funding. Then you have exactly 30 days to fight it and try to prove your innocence. It's an incredibly powerful tool, and they are using it on a massive scale. And make no mistake, this is a full court press. You've got the Department of Justice sending in prosecutors, Homeland Security with thousands of agents on the ground going door to door, Health and Human Services freezing payments. It's a coordinated multi-agency response. This is the federal government's A-team, and they are not messing around. So when the federal government comes into your state with this much force, it's going to create some waves. But in Minnesota, it wasn't just waves. It was a political and economic earthquake. The fallout has been immense. And this is where the story gets really complicated. On one side, you have the Fed saying, look, we have to stop this massive theft of taxpayer money. But on the other side, you have Minnesota officials saying, whoa, hold on a second. They're arguing that this heavy-handed approach is crushing legitimate businesses and families, and they're even questioning the huge numbers the feds are using. This quote really says it all. The Minnesota State Agency in charge of children and families said, we found out about the freezing of funds at the same time everyone else did, on social media. Can you imagine? A state government finding out about a massive federal action in their own backyard from a tweet. That's a huge communication breakdown. And the political fallout has been absolutely brutal. It's been so intense that it's reached the very top. The state's governor, Tim Walz, facing all this pressure, has announced he's not even going to run for re-election. That's how high the stakes have gotten. Okay, so let's hit pause for a second and zoom out. How did things get so bad that a situation like this could even happen? Well, this story really didn't begin in Minnesota. It began with the global pandemic and the unprecedented response to it. The whole problem can be boiled down to two words: pay and chase. During the pandemic, the government's top priority was speed. The economy was cratering, and the goal was to just get money out the door as fast as humanly possible. They paid first and decided to chase down the problems later. Well, it's later, and now the chase is on. And just look at the numbers for the PPP loans. The SBA forgave $750 billion worth of these loans. But now, looking back, they're saying that almost $4.6 billion of that forgiven money might have gone to people who weren't actually eligible. The problem is, how do you claw back billions of dollars that are already gone?
And that really brings us to the central question in all of this, doesn't it? Without a doubt, the pandemic relief money saved countless jobs and businesses. It was a lifeline. But the cost was creating a system that was wide open for fraud on a scale we've never seen before. So we have to ask, was there a better way? And what did we learn from this for the next time a crisis hits? Because you know there will be a next time.